So today I want to talk about web storage and specifically events tied to web storage. We can actually listen across multiple tabs or windows for the events that are taking place with local storage or session storage. So if somebody adds something to local storage or removes something from local storage, if we're on the same domain, even if we're on different tabs, different windows, we know that that thing has happened. So I've got a practical example here of a couple of pages that share data through local storage and how we can use this. So the starter code, I've got two pages here. One page where I can add things. So I'm populating this list in local storage. Another page where if I get the list, I can click on elements and rename them. So I can replace a name with something else. And here I can add things to the list. In both cases, I'm dealing with the same local storage, but as I'll show you, there's some issues because they are on multiple pages. Now, I'm sure everybody listening has at some point opened multiple tabs for the same website because you were trying to work on different things, whether it was you were shopping on something, shopping for something, or if you were looking to develop something, you were testing different parts of it. Whatever the reason, you've worked with multiple tabs. And while local storage is a great place to save local data, it does have some limitations that we need to use the storage event to get around. So what I've got here in the page, on the add page, the first page, when it loads, I get the list, which is the OL on one page. On the other page, it's a UL. They've got different IDs. Doesn't matter to our code. There's a little bit of code at the bottom. This is the code that's specific to this page. And then there's a common JavaScript file, main.js, which is going to be linked to both pages. So each page will have its own copy. And that's important to remember. They will have their own copy of main.js. So any variables that are inside the file will be their own copies. Okay, so we've got the list, which is the list that will contain the list items for the names. Key. This is the local storage key that we're going to use. Both pages are going to use the same key. So there's the list right here. One page has it externally as a global variable. The other one has it inside of the function. Doesn't really matter. The code is different. Maybe it was written by different people. But there's that one common file, main.js. This right here, anything that starts with app, we're talking about the functions inside of main.js. So there's an init function that allows me to pass in the key and get things set up to save that value. And then get storage is going to get to local storage. So here is main.js, my app object. So everything from this file is going to be namespaced inside of app. The init function sets or saves the key, and then I will go to local storage. I've got my reference to that, and inside of here, I'm going to say app storage get item with the key that I saved previously. So these are the first two functions that I'm going to call on both pages. So I will call init and call get storage. The reason I can chain these together is because my init function returns the app object. So that means I can call this one, and the app object is going to be prefixed on here, so it will run. This one's going to do the same thing in case I want to chain that later on. So I look in local storage for this key. If I don't find it, then I'm going to set local storage as an empty array. And if I look at page number 2, if we go into application, okay, right now it's been refreshed, so it has those elements. Let's clear that out, and we'll clear it out over in here as well. So this is the application tab. If I refresh my page, there we go. When it loads, we've got the empty array. Over here, when it loads, we've got the empty array. All right, back into the code. This is a very common pattern. When the page first loads, go to local storage, get your data. If you don't have anything there, put an initial default value. Then what we're going to do is we are going to parse whatever came back. So If something did come back, we're going to parse it, and then we're going to save it inside of a property right here. So app.names, this is the local copy, and this is what I was talking about before. Every page in our website has its own copy of main.js, which means it has its own names variable. Back in here, if I go to the sources tab on both pages, we can see I opened up the main.js file. Here's names. I added it to my watch list, app.names. Right now it's an empty array. And over here, it's an empty array. If I hit refresh, it's empty. If I hit refresh, it's still empty. But I can add something. So let's say I add in one person's name. There we go. I've got that. Now if I refresh, now it has an array. It's an array that's got one object inside of it. The ID, the name. I'm just using timestamps for the IDs. But I've got one value. So that's on the home page, page 1. If I go to page 2 and I refresh, this one's still empty. So if they're working with different arrays, it means they're going to have different data. So local storage is supposed to help us solve this thing. Okay, add name. Other functions inside of here: add, remove, update, save, clear, build list. This is the one that's going to, I make sure there's something in names. If not, I set it to an empty array. And then I just loop through app.names, building list items for each one. So build list, all I have to do is pass in a reference to some HTML element, and it's going to build the list items inside that. Clear, I'm not using it in the code, but I just put it there as an example. This is if I want to clear out local storage. Save names, because this is going to be called anytime I add, remove, or update, I made it its own function that I can call. This key, here's the new version, I get that variable, and again, remember, we've got our own copy of that variable. So every time I save, I'm in danger of messing up the data that's on the page. It's no longer going to be in sync with local storage. Okay, so let's add some data in here. And we can take a look to see what's in local storage for both of these. So if I add one, add another one, I've got 3. Great, there's 3. I come over to this page. It's got the same 3, but its names variable is still empty, because when the page loaded, that's when it went to local storage, got the 3 things, and put them into our names array. It's empty. Now I can refresh the page. That will put me back in sync. But the user doesn't know that they need to hit refresh. So here, okay, I click on one, I'm going to change it, save it. Now I've updated it here in my list. So that means my names variable has been updated. My local storage has been updated. Back on the other page, local storage was updated, but we don't know this. This list is tied to whatever was put into the names, and that's because we don't want to constantly be reading from local storage. Every time I add something, I'm thinking, this is the only reference I've got to local storage, is this one page that I'm working on. So I'm just going to keep that one array up to date. Every time I add a name, I'll add it to that array, and then I'll replace what's in local storage with the new version of my array. I add another name here. There we go, I've added it, it's in local storage. And as far as the user's concerned, this means that that list is up to date everywhere, because everybody's got this list. On the other page, yes, it's in there, but this page didn't know that it needed to update this. Maybe somebody came in here and then said, no, this is the name that I meant to put in there. Okay, so it updated this. This was updated. It has the 3 values. But back here, we've got these names. No longer in sync here. So this is where the storage event comes into play. Now we want to know, hey, did some other page connected to the same local storage, did it get changed? Was it updated? And if so, tell me what was updated so I can update my page. I mean, I have that method inside of here, get storage. I can get the latest version of whatever's in local storage. I've got a build list function that will let me update what's shown there. So I have all the code here. I just need to know when I'm going to call that. All right, so back in our page right here, this is the home page. My build list, this is happening when it initially loads. Great. But again, we've got that problem. We don't know if somebody else has updated it. We don't know when we're supposed to do this again. And that's where this event comes into play. So we'll add the listener to the window. The event is called storage. I can put this in a separate function. I'm just going to write it inside of here. Let's take a look at what we get and when it happens as well. Okay. On the home page, we've got the storage event. It's going to fire something off in the console if a storage event happens. So let's come back here. We've got these three, and let's put this one back to Castiel. All right, we've done that. Going back over to here. Inside of here, yes, it was changed. So the page was aware, or local storage was aware of the change. And sure enough, here is our storage event taking place. The things, a lot of it is the same as a standard event. This is inherited from the regular event. So bubbles, cancel bubble, cancelable, things like that, those are all in there. The stuff that's unique to storage, key, this is the name of the key. We've got the old and the new value. The storage area, this is the reference to the local storage object. Type is storage. And URL, this can also be useful at times. Maybe I want to know which page called it. So if it was a page other than the one that I'm on right now, so I'm on index.html, this says other.html made the change. Okay, so let's say for argument's sake, we do want to limit it, and I only want to listen for or react to changes that were made on different web pages. If I've got multiple copies of the same page, I'm going to ignore them, just for the sake of argument. Oh, inside of here, we've got that property called URL inside of our event. So it's ev.url. I'm going to parse that as a new URL object. Call it target URL. And then I'm going to get its path name property. So that will be just the last part here, this /other.html, that part. And I'm going to compare it to the path name for the page that I'm on right now. So I've got an if statement here where I'm going to compare the two of them. So if location, that's my current page that I'm on right now, its path name property, that's a string. If that does not match the target URL, the one that came out of the event, its path name, if those two don't match, we know it came from another page. A page with a different name, not necessarily another copy of index.html, because those would have the same path name. And there's a timestamp in there as well. We could use the timestamp if that was a factor. I'm just showing you, for example, if this is the way you want to limit it. I want to call getStorage. I'm going to update this. So I want to get the latest version of local storage so that I can put it into my names array. And remember, in here, that's what it was doing. GetStorage was updating our names. And that's the names array that is local to this page. So on this page, we're going to update names with the new value from here. Let's go back to home, get storage, and then we can also build list too. So I'm going to not only update my names array, but now I'm going to update this. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm doing this again if the storage event happens. All right, so those are the three names. Over here, let's refresh, make sure we get the latest one. Now I'm going to add a name. Let's do that. So I've got 5 names in here. This page is not listening yet. So it's got those. I can refresh. And right here, see, I've got the lowercase c for Chuck. So I'm going to come back here and we're going to update this to the uppercase. So we've updated it. Come back to the home page, and it's been updated here as well. The storage event took place, and we knew that it happened. So we can do the same thing on this page as well. We can listen for that event, and if it happens, we'll get the updated version. So we just take this bit of code right here, and we'll move it over into other. So we're listening for our storage event. There we go. And make sure variable list, yep, that works out fine. Okay, back to the add. If we add in one name, so we've got 6 names now, showed up here. If I click on here to edit one, we've edited it, and now it's working here as well. And that's the storage event. And that's the power of what you can do with the storage event. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave those in the comments. I'll answer as many as I have time for. If you found this helpful, please share and subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching.